Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Footy with Fletch podcast. Today we are speaking with four-time Premiership player from the Hawthorn Football Club, Gary Buckenara. Hello, Gary.
Fletch, how are you? It's nice to be with you on this nice Saturday morning.
I'm very well, thanks. It's a lovely day. How are you today?
Yeah, battling through like we all are in Melbourne, unfortunately, through this pretty rotten period. But anyhow, hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel for all of us.
Yeah, I could not agree more. So I guess the first sort of question that I want to ask is, which team did you support growing up as a kid?
Well, I'm from WA, Fletch, so all my footy as a young lad was played in WA, so I followed a team over there called West Perth. And eventually, when I joined the Waffle ranks, I played for a club called Subiaco. But in the VFL back in those days, funnily enough, I did follow Hawthorn, so I was lucky enough to be able to join them in 1982.
That definitely is great that you were able to play with the team that you supported. What was it like playing in the Waffle?
Well, the Waffle was a very strong competition back in the 80s. There were some very good players, as we know, that have come, to the VFL back then from WA, and it continues to be a very good breeding ground for players right through to today. So football's very good. The grounds were a lot bigger in WA than they were in the VFL, and generally there were no cricket pitches on all the grounds. So and the soil base was more of a sandy soil. So if it did rain, it became very slippery, but the water dissipated very quickly, and generally the style of football was a fairly open, fast-flowing, very skillful game. So most WA players came with a fairly high level of skill because of the climate, I guess, the types of grounds we played on as juniors and into the Waffle.
It definitely sounds like a great competition. Is it true that at age 20, you were more interested in playing high-grade cricket than you were interested in football?
Well, yes. From quite an early age, I actually played first-grade district cricket for a club called Scarborough when I was 17 years of age. So I played with some great players, Dennis Lilly, Rod Marsh, Tom Hogan, Greg Shippard, Mick Malone, Sam Gannon, Robbie Langer. So it was a very star-studded side, and it was great. And I really enjoyed the cricket, being a middle order batsman and a medium pace swing bowler.
Why did you choose to go down the path of AFL rather than cricket, Gary?
Well, I was playing footy with my mates, basically in an amateur competition in E-grade amateurs. It was a club called Churchland's Teachers College, and it was in, as I said, E-grade amateurs. And footy, I just enjoyed playing with my mates. And, as things went on, I started to grow and fill out a bit as well. And all of a sudden, someone from Subiaco, who I was tied to because I was in their zone, said, come down and have a training run at Subi, and I did. And I guess from that point, I was trying to manage cricket and do pre-season training as well at the same time with Subiaco, so that became a bit awkward. And I went and did the pre-season, combined that with cricket as well, and I was selected in Subiaco's league side for the first game. So I basically went from E-grade amateurs to playing league football, in the space of one pre-season. I really never looked back. And then you know, after 6 games, I was selected in the state team for WA to play against South Australia. And every club back then had these things called Form 4s that they got 2 per year that they could sign the interstate players on. And every club wanted me to play for them, every VFL club. So they all offered me to sign a Form 4. And so footy sort of took over a bit. I still tried to play cricket, but it was at a time really where the dual sports was very hard to do because they overlapped so much. And in the end, I chose footy, and I guess I'm glad I did.
Yeah, it definitely does sound like an interesting journey for yourself. How did you deal with the bumps on the ride of your football journey? And looking back at your career, was it a positive journey?
Oh yeah, when you look back, I struggled with quite a few injuries, especially in the '83 grand final when I snapped my patella tendon after 3 minutes, and that took me best part of a couple of years to get over. And but I was lucky enough to return and playing another 3 premierships after that. And although it did cut my career short, that knee injury, having to retire at around 30 years of age, or 31 years of age, I look back on a lot of pride to be able to play in such a successful side in an era, have made wonderful friends. So any journey in life or in sport or whatever has its ups and downs. It's very rarely that you go through smooth sailing in anything to do with life. That's the way it is, and it's just how you adapt and meet the challenges of adversity when they do strike. And I'm pretty proud, that I did have some ups and downs, particularly during footy, but I've been able to stay involved in the game for close on 40 years now, so I'm really proud of that. And and I've really enjoyed the friends that I've made too.
You've definitely had a great career in football. Of course, you mentioned your patella tendon injury, which you suffered in the 1983 grand final. You were in hospital for, I believe, 18 days with that injury. What was that time like?
It was very tough because at the time I was allergic to morphine, which is the main painkiller that gives you a little bit of respite from pain. So I could only sort of get relief from pethidine, which sort of made you sleep, but you'd wake up immediately in pain, whereas the morphine, they can control the level of pain on a constant basis, but the pethidine you couldn't use too often, and it was more that I pretty much had to put up with the pain. And yes, that was a tough period. I went in weighing 83 kilos, and 18 days later I got out weighing 63 kilos, so I lost 20 kilos in 18 days due to the pain and just the nauseous, the pain that caused, just not feeling like I could eat.
Well, that definitely must have been a difficult part of your career. So, of course, in 1987, you were the centre of Jim Stynes running over the mark on the football field to give a 50-metre penalty away for you to go back and have a kick at goal after the siren. What was that experience like for you, Gary?
Yeah, well, it was. I wish it was 50 metres, Fletch. It was only 15 metres back at that time. 50 metres would have put me at the top of the goal square, which would have been a bit easier. But as it was, it put me about 35 to 40 metres out, with a swirling breeze at Waverley Park. And I guess that's a moment, it's an individual moment, and it was very nice to be able to do that and get my club into a grand final. It's a bit of a childhood dream when we're down the park all the time as young kids kicking for goal, and you'd always kick that final kick of the night before you had to go home, and it was to win the grand final. And doing it to win a preliminary final for your club at the VFL level was a wonderful personal thrill. Would have been even better if we could have won the grand final in '87, but we were beaten by Carlton on the day.
Yeah, definitely would have been a great moment in your career. What was it like playing in the 1987 grand final against Carlton, considering that it was 30 degrees during the match?
Yeah, well, I think out in the field it was even hotter than that, Fletch. We really felt it, man. And given the week before, which was cold and wet, and we looked like we were going to lose all day. We kicked against the a howling breeze at VFL Park in the preliminary final for 3 quarters because the wind changed at quarter time. So for the first half, we kicked against a fairly strong breeze. So I think, in the end, that told on us the heat of the day, a complete change. By half time, we were pretty much done. And, even though we tried hard, we just couldn't get ourselves back into the game. Carlton had a nice lead at half time and we just couldn't peg them back. And, they got revenge on us for the '86 grand final victory that we had.
Yeah, definitely must have been a difficult match to be a part of. So who would have been the top 5 teammates that you would have played with at Hawthorn? You got to play alongside some of the greats.
Oh, that's very hard, to nominate. I think there were so many great players. Obviously, I played with Lee Matthews towards the end of his career, from '82 to '85 when he retired. So I could see what a great player he was, at 5'9". He was playing predominantly as a forward, would go into the midfield, but, he was kicking his 60, 70 goals a year in those years as a, forward pocket, full forward type player. And, I just saw what a great player he was and how he could make a difference, in certain games by, turning games on its head, doing something when the side needed it. Jason Dunstall was a wonderful player and, he was fantastic. You look at a player like Chris Mew, who was very understated as a centre half back. I thought he was really beaten. Yet, he doesn't get all the accolades he probably should have, but he was a marvellous player. You look at Dermot Brereton, for what he provided, he certainly put his body on the line for his teammates. But you can go through all the lines, players like Langford, Pritchard. We just, Peter Knight's at his heyday and Kelvin Moore I played with. So there were some wonderful players. Probably missed a hell of a lot too, that could be spoken about. But yeah, they'd probably be the main ones I remember.
Yeah, they definitely are some of the greatest footballers of all time. What was it like to be coached by Alan Jeans at one stage during your career at Hawthorn?
Yeah, well, Alan was my coach right through from 82 through to 90, and Alan Joyce stepped in when Alan was cook in 1988. But yeah, he's a wonderful man. Before his time, really, he was such a motivator the way he spoke, but he was also very good at understanding, individual players and what got the best out of them. He'd know their traits, he'd know their personalities. He knew that some players needed a bit of TLC to get the best out of them, and some players needed to get a bit of a rocket to get the best out of them. And I guess that's what it is. It's man management. He was very good at that. And today, more than anything, today's footballers, it's all about man management and, getting the players to believe in your message and your game plan, but also building those personal relationships. And he definitely didn't treat every player as, one and with the same message. There was always, that individual caring that he used to show his players, and that's why he was so successful at Hawthorn, because the players certainly, loved him and played for him.
Yeah, definitely is an important part to have great relationships. You see someone like Chris Fagan at Brisbane currently who has great relationships with his players. So I guess what was it like to play in 4 winning grand finals? Well, you played in 5 grand finals and went on to win 4 of them. What was that like for you?
Oh, look, they're great memories that and that's what you play for, is to win premierships. My club in Subiaco, I won 3 wooden spoons in the 3 years that I played with them. We weren't a really strong side at all, but coming to Hawthorn and being such a powerful era, 9 grand finals in 10 years, winning 5 of them, is a terrific effort. And to be a part of that, it's very hard to explain. It's something that you look back and with a lot of pride, that you were a part of such a wonderful era. Very humbled to be such a part of a great group that is remembered. To win 4 premierships as a player is great, and having a great career at Hawthorn, not only as a player but as a recruiter too. I was a part of 4 premierships as a recruiter and helping to rebuild the list after 2004. So that was another really special part of my football journey as well.
Yeah, you mentioned you were the list manager at Hawthorn. In one of your drafts, you recruited Roughhead, Franklin and Lewis. That must have been a great thrill for you.
Well, it turns out, at the time you draft them, you're hopeful. You've seen them play. You've interviewed them. You're hopeful that they will develop into the players you think they will. And to watch the 3 of them become, really top line players. Probably Buddy, superstar, and Jared, and Jordan, stars in their own right, and just great contributors to the Hawthorn Football Club. Winning 4 premierships, even though Buddy left. Ruffy and Louis won 4, and Buddy, could have won 4, but he chose to go to Sydney. So that was. But watching their development, it was wonderful.
Yeah, definitely was a great draft for you. What was it like, I guess, in your role as a list manager, and what was your relationship with Alastair Clarkson like during that time when he was coach?
Well, Clarko developed him and became, and has become, one of the greatest coaches of all time, given what he's done in this modern era, developing a group of players. You've got to have the players. So, list management nowadays is so very important. And, when he first got the job, he knew what he had to do. The board wanted him, us to reinvest in the draft, build a list, and for him to play them. And the club knew there was going to be some lean years, but to get some games into them, and hopefully, we chose the right ones, which obviously along the way there were some great players brought to the club, not only through the draft, but Clarko did some nice trades to get some players through. And then, to that time where, the three-peat, the biggest thing that probably changed that in the end is Clarko started to have, in my opinion, too much of a say on, the types of players, particularly from a trading point of view, and, getting rid of our earlier picks for bringing in these types of players. And while it paid dividends, now I think, because of, going back 3 or 4 years ago, some of the decisions have left the club a bit thin in the young players coming through now, and the list has aged. And so I think, while the coaches of all clubs should have a say, particularly in the trading for experienced players who come, I think, there's got to be a balance between list management and keeping the list fresh.
Yeah, I definitely could not agree more with you. So, of course, during your career, you had some mental health, issues. And how did you find the AFL's handling of that?
Well, back when we were playing, it's probably since 2000 become quite good with the Players Association and the duty of care that all clubs have, and the understanding that depression is certainly an illness and can happen to anybody in society, and particularly if there's been a trauma or traumas, and that can happen to players who may get delisted when they're not expecting to, or having a major injury which affects their career or ends their career. These sort of things can have profound effects on players, and mine was a combination of obviously the trauma of my knee and the battling through that. My mother was injured very badly in a car accident and eventually passed away and was made a paraplegic from that accident. And I lost most of my money that I earned in football due to trusting people and financial people, and those people basically help themselves. And so that was a combination for me. And I spent a lot of time talking to people and seeking help, and found that eventually, and found the right combination of things for me. And that's very important for anybody out there listening, that if you are feeling that it's very hard to get out of bed, or life's not worth living, or you feel like you've let everybody in your life down, going through this COVID, there is going to be a lot of that, unfortunately, on the horizons. And if you find yourself in a dark place like that, it's really important to seek help and to talk to somebody, whether it's a friend or a partner or a relation, or even a doctor. It's very important to put your hand up, because there's no shame in it now, because it is a brain imbalance, and it is a disease that people now recognise. It's not weak to put your hand up.
That definitely is a really powerful message. So thank you for sharing us some insight into that. I guess that you were the coach of Sydney in 1992 before you were sacked in 1993. What was your brief stint of coaching at Sydney like?
I was very tough, and I guess that played a part in my depressional downfall. Thinking the football industry had turned its back on me after that, in something that I could have done nothing about in a team, and it was a privately owned side back then. The team had been in Sydney for 10 years. The group of private owners were only spending half the salary cap. Things that I wasn't quite aware of when I took on the job, and things that I should have asked about before I took on the job. I basically grabbed the opportunity to be an AFL coach, and it backfired, because there was no facility, there was no training venue, there was no doctors or physios that would come to the club. There was only one trainer to call on. So it was very tough to be able to try and build and develop a squad, given all of those circumstances. And I actually think, given the circumstances, I did a really good job to win 3.5 games out of 25 with that sort of, support that you had behind. So, but, it is what it is. And, it's good to see Sydney has, really kicked on, and it's important for the national competition. We have a strong Sydney side, and with GWS also performing well, it's certainly very important to have that presence in the biggest state in Australia.
Yeah, I definitely could not agree more with you. It sounds like you did have a difficult time as a coach, but then you went on to have great success as a list manager. I guess now, what are your hobbies away from football? How did you get out of the bubble of football?
Well, I love my golf, Fletch. So I'm a member of the Rosebud Country Club down here. I live on the Mornington Peninsula down at Rosebud. So I enjoy the lifestyle, and I've got some good friends who, and Chris Mew is one of those who lives down here as well, and I play golf with him. But he's got a nice boat, and we go out and do a bit of snapper fishing together as well. So I love fishing and golf, and I love the lifestyle down here as well. That's certainly been fantastic. Been here down on the peninsula for now around 10 years. Enjoy that and enjoy the lifestyle. I enjoy watching footy and still do my articles in the Herald Sun and rate all the lists, which I'm doing presently at the moment. That keeps me, gives me a bit of a hobby in football as well. So that's enjoyable. It's just nice to spend some time with my family. I'm a grandfather of 3 young children, which is nice and exciting to be able to see my son and my daughter's family starting to grow and having a little bit of influence in their lives as well. So, things are going quite well. Thanks, Fletch.
Yeah, definitely sounds like you have a great lifestyle. So thank you very much for talking to me today on the Footy with Fletch podcast. It was great to talk to you.
Likewise, Fletch. Thanks for having me, and all the best to all your listeners out there. And it's a very interesting finish to the season. With this COVID, it'll be great to see how the Gabba at night handles the grand final. So that's something to look forward to as well. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you very much. So there you have it, episode 12 of the Footy with Fletch podcast. Thank you for listening to episode 12 of the Footy with Fletch podcast. It was great to have your company. A very special thank you to Gary Buckenara for giving up his time to talk to me as well. So stay tuned for episode 13 of the Footy with Fletch podcast. Goodbye for now.